Hello again, everyone. We're going to get started in just a minute, so we hope you can make your way to your table. Hope everyone's had a great morning and is enjoying their lunch. While you eat, we have the pleasure of hearing from our Lieutenant Governor, John Rogers, Common Good Vermont's Manager of Education and Learning, Lisa Greffe, and a panel of nonprofit peers on thinking beyond the career ladder. It is my honor to welcome Vermont's 84th Lieutenant Governor, John Rogers, to our summit today. His career includes 16 years in the Vermont legislature, where he was known for working across party lines, championing the rights of all Vermonters, and advocating for the working class. He has been an outspoken advocate for recovery houses, such as Jenna's Promise, and food hubs, such as the Center for Sustainable Agriculture in Hardwick. His leadership reflects a strong work ethic, a respect for cultural diversity, and a heartfelt dedication to making Vermont a place where we all can thrive. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Governor John Rogers to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. That really does sum me up quite well. The whole reason that I got back into politics, I really thought when I got out of the Senate 4 years before I ran for this position, I was done. But I saw affordability in Vermont becoming unsustainable, and I was worried about our kids and grandkids and wondering if they were going to be able to live here. It's incredible to be here with you all because I know that collectively you touch pretty much every Vermonter in the state. I didn't actually know the breakdown of the numbers until I was asked to speak here, but I was blown away by the fact that there's over 6,000 nonprofits in Vermont and generating more than $10 billion and paying nearly $3 billion in wages. But the really impressive thing to me is the fact that so many of you are getting paid less than you would be if you were working in the private sector. And that shows me the commitment you have to those you serve. As Emma said, I have been involved with a lot of the recovery community. They're doing some incredible work, and it's absolutely amazing how far we've come since that day when Governor Shumlin made his speech, recognizing and owning the fact that we had a serious opiate problem in the state of Vermont and much of the country. It is so impressive to see the work that these folks are doing out there. And I have been involved with several nonprofits, and it's funny, I was talking with someone earlier saying, I guess most of us don't really think about the status of how the business is organized. And so when I started going through the list to see all the folks that were registered as nonprofits, it was amazing how many different ones I had touched, not really realizing that they were nonprofits. And your work is so needed at this time with what's happening in the federal government. It's incredibly disappointing to see the programs like farm to school programs, which were providing really good local food, keeping money in the community, connecting farms with schools. From my perspective, Vermont needs to grow more of our own food for food security and to provide more beneficial and nutritional meals to people. But the more food that we grow here also gives us more opportunity for donations and gleaning to help feed people who are food insecure. My two biggest worries right now are food insecurity and healthcare with what's happening in the federal government. And I know you folks are on the front line and your work is going to be so essential to take care of Vermonters. And I believe we're really going to need to stick together as a community for the next few years to get through what looks like a bumpy road to me. I came here and am really honored to be able to speak, but I came here more to listen, more to talk to you folks and I want to extend an open invitation to everyone here. My office has an open door policy. I love talking to the people who are doing the work on the ground because they know what's happening. They know how to make improvements. So I would encourage all of you to please reach out to me, reach out to the office. If you just want to chat about what's going on in your world, if you have ideas how to improve what's going on, or as the recovery community did in a meeting, asked for legislation that I helped create and move forward. We only are going to make changes and improve lives for Vermonters if we all work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your remarks, for being here, for spending the day with us, for listening, and for opening that invitation to all of us to come and chat with you. I'm Lisa Greffe. I run Common Good Vermont's education and learning programs, and it is so exciting to be here with all of you. I know so many of you from little squares on Zoom, and I can't tell you how great it is to see you all head to toe. So thank you for being here and for making this day special. I would like to share a little bit about our education and learning programs, and I know a lot of you are very familiar with them. Our mission is to strengthen the sector, and we believe that we can do this by strengthening you and by investing in your professional growth and in your professional career. Each year, we offer a wide range of opportunities, learning opportunities in different formats on all the different topics that are relevant to our sector and that make it possible that you and your work succeed. So I would like to ask you to raise your fork if you have participated in one of our certificate programs. Oh, that's amazing. Raise your fork if you have joined one of our webinars. Awesome. Raise your fork if you have trained with us. If you are one of the consultants and trainers who join us. Yay. Thank you all for being here. And then please raise your fork if you have been to any of our in-person convenings, such as this summit. Yes, this is what I was going for. Thank you. But our work is not just about learning. It is about building a community. The best ideas emerge when we all can come together to share, to learn, to apply, to ask the important questions, to test out, just like here today. I encourage you to take a look at our upcoming events. There is a flyer in your folder that lists all of the upcoming events for the rest of the year, and we would love to see you there and then also continue our learning together in 2026. That spirit continues now with our lunch panel, Beyond the Ladder, Rethinking Career Growth. Please join me in welcoming Sharon Lifshitz, Director of Development and Communications at Lund, who is going to moderate this panel. She participated in all our certificate programs, joined all the webinars there are. She sits on our advisory committee, is a go-to sounding board for us, and like so many of you in this room, is an honorary team member of the Common Good Vermont team. Sharon loves Ted Lasso, I learned just recently. So I'll hand it over with one of his quotes. Be curious about everything. Thank you all. Enjoy your lunch. Handing it over to Sharon.
Okay, happy lunch, everyone. My name is Sharon Lifshitz. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Director of Development and Communications at Lund. You can visit our table back there. Way to go, Isabella. Thanks for holding down the fort. So I am here because I really care about the future of the nonprofit sector here in Vermont. I'm also here because I filled out the feedback form last year, and now the Common Good staff asked me to do a panel on the feedback that I had last year. So they really do listen, and touche, here I am. And the feedback that I had last year was, you know, I really thought that a lot of the programming was either the 301s, the executive leaders, CEOs, folks that were on that trajectory, or 101s. folks that were brand new to the sector, maybe had worked in different roles, but were starting something new. And I was really struck that there wasn't much for folks that maybe are good where they are. They've been doing this work for 3, 4 years, a decade. And it made me think about, how do we really invest in workforce? We're not just focusing on the recruitment and the executive leadership. And it got me to think about, wow, we talk a lot about growth as this career ladder. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And you always feel like, I have to say something else. I have to be the CEO, or I have to grow, or what does it mean to say, I feel good where I am, I feel supported by the work that I do, and we have a panel of experts, and they're experts because they're gonna talk about their own lived experience, and no one knows better about that than them, to really think about, if we care about having a sustainable nonprofit sector, how might we rethink growth? How might we rethink what that pipeline looks like? And to quote Ted Lasso, how to be curious, not judgmental. When someone says, I'm good where I am, how do we engage, find out what that means, and help people grow out and not just up? Feeling good? Okay, so let's bring up our rock star panelists. I'm gonna sit down. Come on up. Okay, how we feeling? Oh, yay, please do. Okay. Yeah, grab your water. Okay, so to kind of warm up and get started, if you could all share, just introduce yourselves, your role and your organization, and our kind of first question is, what about this panel theme, Beyond the Ladder, Rethinking Career Growth, really resonates with you? And Dylan, why don't we start with you?
Is that gonna catch me from back here?
Okay,
No.
great. No? So we're
Do
gonna
I
move
just
that.
move it? Okay, I'll move my chair as well. Here we go. Hey everyone, good afternoon. Hope you're enjoying your lunch so far. My name is Dylan Boisvert. I'm the HR manager at United Way of Northwest Vermont. Been in my role now for, to Sharon's point, 7 years, working in the HR function for my tenure there in various roles. So I'm kind of putting on a dual hat today, right? First being my own experience in a department of one, what that means to sort of do a job, be the one person doing it with support from others, but what that means for growth and development and how I've changed my role over time. And also thinking about, as the HR person, what it means to help others grow in their roles, what their development looks like. So hopefully I can share some anecdotes from my own journey, how we've helped support staff in their own growth. And so, yeah, I guess that's what brings me here today. Thanks, Sharon. Thanks to my panelists.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tara Chase. I am the Operations Director at Springfield Supported Housing Programs, which is a program that helps support individuals who are at risk of homelessness or who are literally homeless. We have 27 shelter units, and we have a team of about 14 of us. In this position, I was able to, serving Southern Windsor and Northern Windham counties. When they first reached out to me to be on this panel, I was like, I'm not understanding what the panel's about to begin with. I was like, I'm not sure what this is. But after talking and learning a little bit more about it, I realized that it's exactly what I'm doing. It's being in the position that I am as an operations director, supporting those that are providing services to other people, and enjoying just my growth within my agency, within my programming. I have no desire to ever be an executive director. That's not a joy that I'm looking for. I want to grow and support my community and those that are serving those people in my community.
Okay. Thank you, Tara.
Sorry, Jessica.
It's okay. Hi. My name is Jesse Warren. I use he, him pronouns. I am doing as directed and putting the mic right in front of us. I just want to say this is kind of hilarious because when they said, do you want to talk on a lunch panel? I didn't think it was going to be this intimidating, but I thought everyone would be eating their lunch and not 400 people staring at us, but that's fine. We're going to roll with it. I currently am a residential program director at Elevate Youth Services in Barrie. I've been there for, shout out to Barrie. I've been there for 3 years within the agency. I started out as an intern. And something that really spoke to me about this panel when I was asked to be on it is thinking about the idea of success and how that idea has changed throughout my life, sort of how I was raised and what the idea of success meant to me and what was instilled in me as a child, and how throughout my career that has changed and shifted depending on the state of the world as a factor in my career growth, and how as a supervisor now I try to help employees formulate their own idea of what success is that isn't necessarily the societal norm.
Great. And what I love about this panel is we have representation from across the state. We have different ways of coming into this work, and then of course the work and the commitment that you have. And this idea of growth and success, right? We talked a lot when we met, because you have to like pre-plan the panel, which we did to meet each other and kind of hear these themes, was a lot about, wow, we've all changed as people in a time where the world is changing pretty rapidly, and to be able to look back over, our own career journeys. And so I'd love if you could share a little bit about your career journey so far. How do you define success, as Jesse was talking about? How might that have changed over time?
Yeah, I'll take that one first. I was preparing for this question and I thought, how far back should I go? And I decided on like high school. So I went back to high school and I had it in my head. Growing up, I'm going even further back now, but pre-high school, I was a really avid Sherlock Holmes reader. And I thought, I want to be a detective. I want to be a criminologist. And then in high school, we had a guest speaker come through, Dr. Henry Lee, a criminologist at the University of New Haven, and I thought, I want to go there. I want to study with him, do what he does, and that's what I want to do. And that's not what I did. I'm here in Vermont. I grew up in Connecticut. I left Connecticut. But I guess my point in that is I've always been jealous of folks who say they have that 5-year plan, that 10-year plan, because, I mean, maybe I do and I don't think about it that way, but I feel like oftentimes my growth, my success, my career path has come from, and most importantly, people around me supporting me, but also me saying yes to things. And so fast forward a bit, I'm in college here at Champlain College in Burlington, and I had a professor, and he said, do you know this thing called organizational psychology? I think you'd be really good at it. I didn't know what that was. Honestly, I thought he was saying I should be a psychologist who helps organize people's lives, and that wasn't the first time someone told me that, so I thought, that still holds true. That's interesting. Wonder what that means about me. Looked it up later that day in my dorm room, and I thought, it's about psychology of business. That makes more sense. And you know what? Let me look into this a little bit more. So I picked up a business minor, and that's sort of how I ended up in the HR space. After graduation, I was getting my master's degree, worked part-time in a nonprofit here in the Burlington area, just getting my feet in the sand, toes in the sand, feet in the water, in the sector. And so I was doing more programmatic work, though. It wasn't really the HR businessy stuff that I had, come to find my passion for. And so my position was ending. I finished my degree, and I saw a job at United Way in Northwest Vermont, and I was an HR operations associate position, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna apply for that one. Like, HR is my space. Operations I know because I mop the floors here. Like, that's easy, I can do that. And so I applied for the job, ended up getting the job. That was great. Timing, sorry, I'm taking a long time with this answer. So here's my story, everybody. I had the summer off between my two positions. I ended up wrapping up my position in June. My position in HR started in August, late August. So I had 2 months off in the summer. I was 25. It was great. And then, it came time to start thinking about work again, right? My start date's coming up soon. And so I remember I pulled out my laptop and I Googled, how do I do human resources? Because I hadn't actually thought that far ahead yet. And then I got all nervous and I was like, I conned this organization. Like, they just hired their first ever HR person and he can't do HR. Like, this is not going to be good. And then I, took a step back and I convinced myself, well, that's their fault. They hired me. I didn't make them hire me. And if this goes wrong, then oh well. But I guess jokes aside, I they knew they were hiring me without HR experience, and they were hiring me for what I brought, right, beyond that sort of direct HR experience. And they've been great in my HR career growth and trajectory. I want to say shout out to Susan Loynd, because my employer United Way put me through some of Susan's classes, HR 101 and a few others that she led, and learned a lot about the space and have been growing in my career ever since. And so I guess I'll stop talking now.
And you know your
pass it-
boss is right there, you know? Best decision they ever made. I just had a beeline right to Jesse's face.
I hope it was
Talking about how you
smiling.
Cool.
All right.
The whole time.
All right, I'll pause here. That's my story. We'll come back to more from me later. So anyway, here's the mic.
I'm glad that he gave me the mic all the way over here.
It's heavy.
So success. You know, when we were talking about this in our planning session, I had to say, I was like, so the Tara who defined success when she was younger is nowhere near the Tara that is today. The Tara as a child wanted to be a fashion designer, which is absolutely nowhere I am now. I like clothes, I like to wear them, but to design clothes is not really my exciting part of life. Now, I think that when I think about success and my growth through my different positions as an AmeriCorps member, working with youth, and different community pieces, I find that for me, I feel the success when others are successful, when I see that there's growth, when I see that there's connections. Something that I often share with my staff is that we can't define what success is for somebody else. We have to highlight those pieces of success that we see along the way, right? It might simply just be filling out that one housing application and getting all the documentation that you need for it. Or it could be getting housed, right? Along that whole line, there's processes and there's opportunities for success and there's lots of barriers that go along the way. So I really like to try to highlight that success is more about those small steps. It's those places that you can get to eventually. It is that community that you build to support you. It's being able to jump over that barrier that's now just a hurdle. So that would be how I would define success.
Great question. Am I talking about, are we on number 2 or number 3?
That's a great question. I jumped around a little bit because there's a lot on here. So a little bit about your career journey so far. How do you define success you were talking about?
Oh, okay.
And maybe what that looks like now.
Okay.
Great.
So my career journey so far. Should I go back to high school?
Go for it.
Is Tanya Osachi here? Hi, Tanya. Shout out to my former supervisor. I'm going to tell a story about Tanya. So, speaking of AmeriCorps, when I was 24 years old, I joined the Vermont Youth Conservation Corps in Richmond, which is a peer-led organization where they taught me how to bench trails and they taught me how to do field work and stuff like that. And we, you know, as a 24-year-old, were responsible for a group of teenagers who weren't much younger than myself to train them on those things and then take them out, you know, for weeks at a time and basically give them their first job. So that was about a 4-month endeavor. And after that, I was looking for employment. So I went on Indeed. I like working with youth. I enjoy case management type things like that. And so I saw a job posting for a youth development coordinator that I applied to. And Tanya emailed me and said, well, you know, what's your situation? And I said, well, I'm working out in the woods with this group of kids, so, you know, I'm not able to leave or to do an interview or anything like that. And she said, well, we can be accommodating. So she came out to the field to interview me. And I remember we sat on a bench and I was covered in dirt. And she said, I think that my daughter is on your crew. And she said, he's great, you should hire him. So thanks to Tanya's daughter. And I feel like I'm telling this story because of the importance of networking. And of course, I didn't know what networking was at that age, but it was connections like that put me in the position that I am today as a supervisor and as a program director. So I did a counseling internship during COVID. I ended up working for the agency that I was interning at. Supervisors believed in me. They said, you know, you'd be perfect for this role and things like that. And I feel like, you know, I looked at the directory of who is in this room today, and it's a lot of executive directors and folks like that. And something like a piece of advice that this wasn't even the question, but I'm just going to tell you some advice, is supervision is really important, and interpersonal relationships with your staff are also very important, no matter what level they're on. So even if they're not your direct supervisee, having those relationships, asking about, you know, if you remember one thing about people, like, how's your kid, how's your cat, what did you do for Thanksgiving, like something like that is super impactful when people are doing really hard work in nonprofits. They often don't feel heard or listened to, and so it's little things like, you know, interviewing you when you're covered in dirt, or like believing in you when other people didn't, or, you know, little things like that can help somebody to be really successful. And I'll end there for that question.
Love that. Talk about meeting someone where they're at. That is incredible. And I think one of the things I love about this conference and this summit is being able to look around the room and finding a person who made an impact on you. Because they saw something in you, or because they challenged you to look up a new major, or they saw the success and the strengths that you bring naturally, and they nurtured that in you. And one of the things that we talked about in terms of takeaways, because I like panels that where you can write something down and literally take something away, is that we're not preaching organizational redesign. That's a different panel. I think maybe this afternoon it happened already. But we did want to highlight some of those things that might seem small, that are crucial: the relationship building, the supporting, the mentoring, the getting to know your people so that you can figure out how to support them, whether it's in your agency or not. And there's been a lot of movement up here in really wonderful ways. And so I'm curious what you all think about how can organizations, right, if they're not going to redefine their whole maybe organizational chart, what's some strategy or things that organizations can do to redefine what success or growth or maybe appreciation looks like?
So one example I thought of when I was trying to, you know, a little closer here, trying to think through what it means to be successful at something in your role without necessarily trying to get a promotion out of it or trying to, you know, grow your skills in sort of one track. And so the example that came to mind was this idea of stretch goals or projects that are somewhat ambiguous. Being able to work with the people that you support around setting up some parameters for what it is you're looking for in a particular project, but let them run with it, let them see what comes out of that. An example from my own work that I think stands out to me is I had someone on the leadership team, you know, ask me about organizing interns, right? We had a few disparate intern opportunities at the organization, and we wanted to really consolidate that process in human resources. And so I said, I got it. I'll look into that. We'll get something in place to organize our interns. And again, we're a staff of 30 people, and I think I went a bit too much in our first semester there because we ended up with 8 interns that semester. And again, a staff of 30 with 8 interns was a lot. But you know, coming out of that, we learned a lot. We had a lot of really good projects, from our program teams to our development teams to our communications teams. Like, everyone in the organization felt this energy because we had this clear sort of bucket of work for our interns to work on. And I feel like 2 answers here for the same question. I'm going 2 directions at once, so I'll bring it back together. One, I think it was really cool for the interns to be able to be part of an organization that was supporting internships in such a way, right? We developed a cohort model for all of our interns that came in. We all gave them sort of a lesson plan and points to connect throughout the semester with their other interns to hear what they're working on. So that was cool, one for them. But the second part of that story is what it meant for me, right? To be able to have this one challenge, this one obstacle we want to try and figure out, and then making it something so much bigger, right? We now have had our intern program running for, I want to say, probably 2-3 years now, with a solid cohort of 3 to 5 interns each semester, and just seeing that come out of the idea of wanting to be able to bring something together or put more organization behind this one thing, and then me being able to say, okay, but also let's do it this way and really make it this really cool thing for everybody. I think that's something that we should all think about as supervisors or supporting people who are growing in their roles, right? Is to give them an idea, right? Give people an idea and see what they do with it, right? See what it ends up, see where it ends up. And it might not be what you thought it was going to be, but they have their own ideas. People have their own things they want to bring to the work, and let them do that. So that's my example there.
Thanks, Dylan. So let's see. Redefining what success or growth looks like. Jesse, brought up the need for supervision and how important that supervision is. One of the things that I really like to do is make sure not only that I'm providing lots of supervision, but also observing what's happening in the offices, seeing who is it that people go to when they have a difficult client that they need support or suggestions around what to do next. Once I've observed that and I recognize who are those players on our team, I want to also pause for a minute and say that when I started with my agency 6 years ago, there were 5 of us. We got up to 17. We're back down to 14, rolling with everything, rapid growth. But in that rapid growth, we recognized that there weren't enough people in the positions to support everybody. So we created a leadership team. We didn't have a leadership team before because there was 5 people. And so in picking the right people in those roles because of observation, for recognizing everybody's talents and what they have to bring to the table, we were able to create a leadership team that's been operating for the last 2 years. So during those times where things were really, really hard, or just recently that you don't know what's going to happen next, they have been able to support each other, us as well as some of the leaders, but also being able to help guide the agency as we're moving forward to the next steps, right? What other programs can we bring in? What other community partners have we not worked with that we should bring to the table? Having that wide variety of perspective has helped us to make sure that we're making the connections and that my blind spots aren't blind because I have other people there watching my back for me and with me. The other part I wanted to put is, I don't like public speaking, not a huge fan, but I do think that this is really important information. There are lots of your teammates who aren't in the spotlight. They don't like to be the center of attention, but they still bring a lot of really important pieces of information to your community, to your group, to your team. And so making sure that you find a way to help show that for them. One of the things that we do at our staff meeting, we have staff meeting every Monday. We start out with high fives, gratitudes for each other or to clients. And that's that opportunity where we get to be able to say, you know what, I know that you didn't know I saw you doing that thing, but thank you, because it made my life, it made my life a lot easier, and this client was able to get the services that they needed. They didn't have to stay outside and sleep tonight because we were able to all come together and take care of that unit and get somebody else back into it. So highlight those people that aren't in the limelight all the time because they too want to be seen, maybe not publicly, but those would be the 2 pieces that I would put out there.
I love that. I agree with everything you just said. I think that's awesome. I like the shout outs. Let's see. I think like taking a step back a little bit. So I think it's really important to identify and pay close attention to how you can retain and support maybe like minority groups or folks who you might not necessarily, like when you think of the word leader, just think about it for a second. Who do you picture in your mind? Is it like a middle-aged white cis man? And how we should try to reframe that and our biases and allow extra support. And I'm trying to phrase this as a queer person and how it's really impactful and helpful to be like believed in a place or like a society when nobody else is like you, or like a lot of folks at an agency aren't like me, and I might walk in a room of directors and I'm like the only queer person there, and it feels very isolating. And it's important to try to elevate folks like me or folks who you might not necessarily view as leaders to believe in them and give them the opportunity to move up in those roles. And I think it's important to also recognize that it's really tough being in leadership roles, and there could be reasons why queer, trans, black and brown, neurodiverse folks might not want leadership roles, and why that's also valid. But having them in positions of power is also a trickle-down effect. Like, I know for me, we work with a lot of neurodiverse, queer, trans youth in the state of Vermont. This is becoming like much more of a conversation with the younger generations. And if they're seeing, you know, supervisors and directors and leaders who are like them, it's really impactful. So I think it's important for folks who do the hiring and for HR and people like that to be considering where can we market to diverse populations in the state of Vermont. And that might look like being really specific, like going to Outright or going to the Pride Center, which unfortunately is paused or doesn't exist anymore. Oh, I don't know what this means. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, like going to spaces or, you know, doing recruitment specifically to people who are diverse. Also, like if anybody just went to that neurodiversity and HR workshop, it was really good. And they talked about how from the get-go, you can meet people where they're at. So say somebody needs a lot of like extra processing time in an interview, we should all, like the standard should be during hiring, we should just give the questions out, give the hiring, like the questions out to everybody, because we're not trying to trip people up in interviews. We want to get them, what did they say in the workshop? Like we wanted to get them to present as their best selves. We're not trying to trick them with interview questions. Like if somebody needs, you know, a different sensory processing style, like they have to be able to view the questions. We shouldn't just ask them it verbally, we should give it to them written. If they need it ahead of time to think about their answers, we should give them that. Just some things to think about.
And I love how the sessions today are kind of building on this theme of growth and success and redefining. And I'm really struck and keep thinking about this word belonging, right? If we are giving so much, I oftentimes say, right, that passion isn't currency, right? Because we love what we do doesn't mean we should be paid less. It doesn't mean we should be expected to do more because we found something that is really fulfilling, even if it's hard. But what if you found places to belong within the agencies that you worked and you saw people who look like you or you vibed with in positions of power, and how we need to step back, which is really, really hard to do when you feel like you're in a crisis and everything is changing. I also think about just the power of asking the question, that we might have our own preconceived notions about what success looks like. I came from, you know, two working class parents that, you know, my mom was a social worker. There wasn't necessarily like upward momentum for her to grow unless she wanted to be a director. And she didn't want to be a director. She had a daughter at home and she wanted to be there, and, you know, but I was always had this ladder of you had to grow up, right? You had to get to this next level, and that's what success and belonging and all of those things mean. And I love how even just some of the things we picked up today keep redefining that. And one of the things I think is hard if the only time you have to ask those questions is in a performance evaluation. Okay, you've done all this performance, I've seen you all year, I might be connecting with you for the first time, and like, how might we reframe that to what does it mean for you to stay? And the power of a stay interview and some of the questions that might be able to unleash and unlock. And then the last thing I want to name is something I do with my team is I have them tell me how they like to be appreciated, knowing that might change, and then I listen to them. So if I have a team member that says, please do not call me out in any meeting, that I'm not like, oh my gosh, this person is so great. Oh shoot, they literally told me they didn't like to do this. And so this idea of building connections, asking the questions, but then being able to follow through on the response and giving, whether it's in supervision or other times throughout the weeks, the days, the years, that it's really a feedback process, right? That we're able to listen, we're open to that, we're open to changing, and we're open to listening to people and actually believing and supporting them and meeting them where they're at and with what they're saying. So I hope just a couple of takeaways there. So I want to be mindful of time. So we've talked a lot about, right, there's growing up and there's growing out. And I'm curious what this idea of outward growth has looked like for you. I know for myself, it was joining a couple of boards and actually like being in spaces around governance and really understanding it that way. And as was said before, I've taken like every common good class there possibly is because I like learning, and that's important to me, even if it isn't in development and fundraising work. And so I'm curious for all of you, how can employers support employees in ways that support their outward growth? Sound good?
Yeah, Sharon, I think you named a good amount of some examples there. And it really is about making sure your staff feel like they are the knowledge experts in their work, because they are, right? Make them feel like they own that, right? Their work is their expertise, and however we can support them in understanding their expertise even more or getting more information to become even better at what they're doing really well, like that's a cool thing to be able to unlock or enable. You know, you called out a few opportunities. I think any, free or low cost webinar, maybe you're attending a few and then next thing you know, you're leading some, right? Like shift the mindset from like, right, you learn the thing, now become the teacher, right? Teach others because you're now the expert in that, right? I think if we can grow our teams to become the experts in the things that they're doing, that's just going to unlock a lot for the sector and for the work that we're all doing. The point of the panel is that we don't all have to be CEOs or executive directors, right? But we can really own what it is that we're doing. And there's magic in that, right? There's magic in knowing that we're all working towards the same goal, but doing it in using our own strengths, right? Doing it in ways that make us feel like experts and that we're having an impact. It can be a training series, it can be getting up and having people speak on a panel, right? There's so many ways to do that, but it's about getting folks out there and sort of out of their chair for a little bit and demonstrating what it is they know and what they can do. That's my thought around that.
Thanks. Career fulfillment. We hit on a bunch of them already. Because I'm like, my staff, the team, I make sure that they are aware of all the trainings, all of the different conferences they can go to, Common Good series. And I also hear what they say in the supervisions, and I hear where they want to grow. And so when I see a great series, and I'm like, oh, this hits development and marketing, and you've been talking about that. That's not what you're doing right now in your position, but it could be something that's going to better you as a person, be it in my agency or somewhere else. I want to promote that. So I do make sure that there's space and there's time because they can always bring that back. I really highlight that. I do highlight board work. I went a little above and beyond. At one point, I think I was on 10 boards.
Wow.
Yeah. I really like doing things. And I recognize that I don't always have to be at the board meeting to do the thing, right? I can still volunteer at different events. So encourage your team to be on a board. Ask them to think about the different agencies that we work with and allow space and pay them for it, right? That it's not a voluntary thing because it could be beneficial for the agency as well. So I guess it's also a little bit of challenging yourself around, is this a good workforce investment? And rethinking how does that investment come back to the workforce? Be my part.
Yeah, those were really good answers. You basically said everything I was going to say, but just to highlight it, I one time had a supervisor tell me that whatever I wanted to do to promote my own professional development within reason, they would support because the investment in me would in turn support the agency as a whole, even if I ended up taking that skill with me in the future to another agency or, you know, in my personal life or whatever. And I thought that that was kind of astonishing to me that he said that. No one had ever said anything like that to me before. And so I think that was an example of great leadership. And of course, keeping in mind that there's not always the financial resources, depending on the agency, to be able to do that. But I think investing in professional development to the extent that we are able to is really important. And that also stems from the relationship piece. So I think a lot of folks in this room have probably heard of imposter syndrome, and especially in the nonprofit world or the world of mental health, a lot of working professionals have felt that, maybe feel that right now. And it just means that you don't believe in yourself enough to be doing the job that you're doing. And so in those supervision meetings, if you know so-and-so, you know, really wants to do grant writing or like has talked about it or dropped this hint or whatever, then you should be, hey, I thought of you. Like you know, I'm going to send you over this link. You might be interested in this kind of thing. And, you know, folks just might not be in that mindset to want to grow outward. And if they don't want to, that's fine. But I think it says a lot to offer those options. You know, we're all on newsletters. You know, we see opportunities for classes and for boards and volunteer opportunities all the time. And so I think that we should be promoting professional development when we can.
And I think for leaders in the room, whether that's a title or you see yourself as a leader within your agency, how do we model that for others too? I think there's a lot of times I hear my staff like, it's important, but I just don't have the time. And if they don't see senior leadership taking the time for their own growth, it's really hard to ask someone to do something you won't do for yourself. And so where does that modeling, that intentionality come to it? And stepping outside your comfort zone sometimes is really, really fulfilling and really, really scary. So I have so much gratitude for all of you. I want to wrap it up with a question that's not on here. We're okay, great. Oh, perfect. Dylan's like, whatever, I'm going to read Sherlock Holmes later, which I love that I learned so much about these people on this panel. Is lastly, just what is maybe one takeaway? What is one thing you want these 400 people that have been staring at us for the last 45 minutes to walk away thinking, feeling, believing? And we don't have to go in a straight line if anybody has thoughts and just wants to go. Yeah, Todd.
I will. I'll talk.
Yes,
Jump right in. Just remember to appreciate your team. Appreciate yourself for showing up every day. One of our ongoing jokes at our office is whenever somebody new starts, every day, probably for the first 2 weeks, we thank them for coming back. It's not that we've had people not come back, but it's more of like appreciating the fact that this is hard and you're learning and you're still doing a hard job. So that appreciation and acknowledgement of self-struggle, putting yourself out there in uncomfortable situations, constantly remembering that. We also make sure honor your team. Thankfully, I have team, but again, talked about that person that doesn't like to be in the limelight. She knows every person's birthday in the office, and she ensures that on that birthday, they always get a card that is signed by everybody on the team. And we all co-locate. We're not all in the same office on the same day every day, but she ensures that happens and that they get a little treat. So just a small, simple little thing, but I will tell you every year my staff are looking forward to their birthday. And I'm so thankful that she loves to do that because I don't do that very well. So appreciating people, right? And seeing them, making sure that you hear them, and reflective listening.
I just wanted to, I guess, maybe highlight, you know, how important I think it is that we all play to our strengths and do what we do really well. this year on our annual review and feedback and goal setting form that we have everyone complete, you know, I put a question on there. It was actually the mid-year review. I put a question on there that had staff answer, you know, what's one thing in your work over this past 6 to 12 months that has brought you joy, right? Not something you did really well, that's a different question, right? But what brought you joy? What was fun in your job? And how can we do more of that? And, you know, I think, yes, someone who also had to fill out that form and talk to my supervisor about it, right? That was a really fun exercise for me, right? To think about what was fun in my work. I mean, a lot of it was great. I know, that's really cool. But, you know, talk to your people, you know, either as a supervisor, talk to your people about what is fun for them to do, right? Is there capacity for more of that in their day-to-day jobs? And if you're someone who's advocating for yourself, think on that question, right? Think about what is fun for you in your work. And, you know, sometimes you might think about that and say, you know what, I didn't have fun, and maybe it's time for a change. So think about that too. Where can I go and have fun, right? If I'm not growing the way I want to grow where I am currently, if I'm not having fun, where can I do that? And you know what, that's an okay decision to make, right? So think about it that way too, right? It doesn't necessarily have to mean you have to grow in the place you are, right? I think a lot of us on this panel have, and that's been really cool for us. But, you know, if you're not having fun, if you're not doing what you like to do, think about where that can happen and maybe make a change. You know, life is about, for me, saying yes to things and seeing where I end up, sometimes on a panel. So I guess that's my piece there.
Okay, so I'm really struck by this morning the reframe from meet the moment to own the moment. And I think that's been a lot of what we've been talking about. How do you own your skills and strengths? How do you own kind of what you want? How can you redefine growth, and how can we do that together? So please, again, fill out the feedback form, because the staff does listen, and maybe next year your feedback will be part of putting together a panel. You just never know. So thank you, all three of you, for your dedication and your commitment and the levity and joy you bring to this work. And thank you all for being here. Let's own the moment together. Thank you. And I have to say, I was given till 1:15, and it is exactly 1:15.
Amazing. Amazing job, y'all. Big appreciation to our panel and Sharon. And yes, please fill out the feedback form, and you could be here next year. With that, though, we are on time, and our next session starts at 1:30. So we'll be moving into our next breakout session and returning here at 2:30 for cookies and coffee. So little afternoon pick you up. See you soon.